All right, so let's go ahead and kind of complete our work here on looking at some of the online resources available through the library. So once again, let's go ahead and start at Lake City High School webpage. And I'm going to assume that you've already gone through the video explaining how to set up MyBib and also how to navigate through Gale Virtual Reference Library, or GVRL. So we are going to move on to another one of those sources that I have set up for you guys. So just hover above Our School, come down to LCHS Library once again. This takes us to Destiny Discover. So here's the link for MyBib, which we will use. And then also there's the GVRL. So once again, take a look at those two videos or sets of videos that are also available. Anyways, what we're going to look at right now is a source called LiLI.org, and this is a magazine database. Now, just to keep in mind, for comparison's sake, the GVRL is also an online resource that is considered a print source, but these were electronic nonfiction books with our GVRL. In the LiLI, what we're going to do is we're going to look at online print sources, but in the form of magazine articles. So let's go ahead and click the link to LiLI. One of the first things you'll notice is that there is some login information. You don't need to really create an account for LiLI, but what they do is this is provided by the state of Idaho. And they want to somehow protect, or at least try to protect and make sure that only Idaho citizens are getting into this. So they do ask for your zip code and your city. So I'm just putting in 83815 because I live in Coeur d'Alene, and instead of Coeur d'Alene typing in the full name, I'm just going to put in CDA, and that's what I suggest you do. I've seen Coeur d'Alene written a million different ways, and so it, depending on how a student enters it, might not get you through this login information, but CDA will work. So if you live in Hayden or some other town in the state of Idaho, it doesn't really matter if it's Hayden or even in our district. Then any combination that matches up with zip code and city should work. So go ahead and click on login. Now remember, last time when we were looking at Gale Virtual Reference Library, we were doing research on Zeus. And so we're going to continue with that. Now, one thing I would like to point out ahead of time is I am not actually taking you to the entire LiLI website. If you're ever interested in what's in all of LiLI, you can just go to lili.org. But I have found that it is such a huge website with many, many different types of resources that it can be confusing if you try to go there on your own. So instead, what I do is I focus on one database that's designed for high school students that is called Explora. So that's where we're going to be doing our work right now. So I'm going to go ahead in the search bar here, just type in Zeus really quick and hit enter. All right, so we can see as soon as we get our results coming back that we have 7,435 results, all right, which is obviously a pretty decent number. A few things that you should think about if you end up with a really large number of results, like we do in this case, is there is a way to limit your results, to narrow it down to more specific to what's going to be useful for you. For instance, so over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is a publication date range that you can change. So we can see that we have results going all the way back to the year 1926, so almost 100 years ago, and that is up through the year 2020. So what I'm going to do, just so that we make sure that I get more recent results, is I'm just going to pull this date range over to, let's say, it doesn't really matter in this case, 2005. We can see the screen is updating. And that has gotten us down to just about 6,000 results. Okay, so we eliminated some results, but obviously there is still plenty to search through. I would tell you that if you are looking at a subject that or a topic that changes frequently and the information continually needs to be updated, you might even come and bring your date range something a lot closer to the year 2020. So you might even make it back to 2015 on some subjects, or even less. to get you the most recent information. So just keep that in mind. We won't mess around with that any further because I think you can figure out how to work that on your own. All right. The other thing that I'm going to look at or have you look at is the different source types. Now, I kind of cheat when I say that LiLI, or specifically Explora within LiLI, is a magazine database. And that is because there's actually quite a few other types of sources that are a part of this. We have academic journals, trade publications, magazines. Obviously, news is referring to newspaper articles. And we have book reviews, reports, biographies, books, and encyclopedias. So anyways, my suggestion is typically to limit your results down, assuming that you have enough results to choose from. I would limit it down to just magazines in most cases. And we see that that'll get us down to 751 results, which should be plenty for this research project. All right, so we can see that our results have updated. So now we only have 751 that are being returned. I could type in a more specific search even instead of just the term Zeus to narrow it down even more if I wanted to, but we won't dig that deeply into it at this time. So anyways, just kind of scrolling through, interested in that. Coming down to our third option here, we see a view from the birthplace of Zeus. And this is written by Jason Urbanus, and it's from the Archaeology magazine. And it is from the January-February edition from 2018. So this article, if we read the description, this article discusses the excavation at Mount LiLI in Greece, which is revered as a holy ground by the cult of Greek deity Zeus. So this might actually be of use for us. Okay, so keep in mind that we're doing our research project or our hypothetical research project on Zeus. So if we're going to go ahead and take a look at this article, one thing I want to point out is that we have an option to look at it as an HTML full text, or we can look at it as the PDF full text. Now, in a lot of cases, you won't be given both options. If we come down and look at article number 4 here, Olympia Today, What Remains, you'll see that they are only offering the HTML text version. But let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. The first thing I'm going to do is let's look at what the PDF full text looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this here, this link. This will take a little while to load, typically because it is a PDF, which is it's a pretty big file in this case. And it opens up this article. And when you have the option to look at the PDF full text, you will see that it is actually a picture of how the article appeared in the actual magazine. So if you had this copy of this issue of the magazine, it would look exactly like this. So if we look at the words, it starts out Zeus, scion of the Titans, ruler of Olympian gods. This is how the article begins. We can see as we scroll down through this that, there's some pictures, some photographs that are certainly of interest, but might not necessarily add to what information you can glean from the article itself. And so just keep that in mind when we go and look at the HTML full text. So I've gotten to the bottom of the article. This looks like it might be of interest, but let's go ahead and take a look at what that HTML version of this article would look like. So I'm going to click back to my results list in the upper left-hand corner. And now, instead of clicking on the PDF full text for this article, I'm going to click on the HTML full text. Now, as you'll see, it presents the article in basically web page format. So this looks like just any old random web page and not the PDF. We can see that the article, even though it looks differently, obviously missing are the pictures, but we can see the opening sentence here, and it is word for word identical to what the PDF was. So Zeus, scion of the Titans, ruler of the Olympian gods, and so forth. So word for word identical, but pictures are missing. They do mention them at the bottom of the article that there were a bunch of photos for this article that are not included in the HTML version of it. So let's go ahead and decide that, this is an article that we're going to find of interest. And so just like when we were looking at Gale Virtual Reference Library, we're going to want to save a copy of it. And the best way to save it, of course, is to use our Google Drive. So over on the right-hand side, we have our tools available. And so I will go ahead and click on the Google Drive option. Now, I will warn you, sometimes you'll end up with this pop-up that is warning you, that, if you had to permit your pop-up blocker to allow the site, this window may remain open. I found that when, I just newly log on to a Chromebook and navigate to LiLI, that this actually applies. So it really, even though I've clicked it, it really hasn't saved it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window. And unfortunately, have to click the Google Drive again. And then in this case, I think it's the third time that I actually have to click it before it will start to do the work that I want it to. Okay, there we go. So, stay with it. It's a little clunky. I don't know exactly why it keeps causing this problem, but it should eventually, so long as you click Google Drive enough, after 2 or 3 times, it should be able to save it. And we can see right here, your document has been saved to your Google Drive account. We can go ahead and click on OK. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Google Drive account just to show you what that looks like. So I come to my drive. Now, just like with Gale Virtual Reference Library, it puts this article in our priority bar, okay, up here at the top. But as things get added to this, to your Google Drive, it will eventually get pushed out of the priority bar. So really, where we should look for this is if you come down to My Drive on the left-hand side, and we open that up, we should be able to come down and we are looking for a folder called EBSCO, okay? So just like with GVRL, where Gale creates its own folder to store the articles or chapters in, EBSCO does the same thing. It creates its own folder in your drive and titles it with EBSCO. So all we have to do is click on it and to open it up. There we go. And here is our article that we can see a view from the birthplace of Zeus. Okay, so in order to view it, all we do is click on it. Now, one thing that's a kind of interesting, and to be honest, a little bit annoying, is I had tried to save the HTML. I was on the HTML page when I tried to save this, but for some reason, it saves it as the PDF, which is fine. The information is all the same, but it doesn't create that HTML for us where we could create notes by converting it into a Google Doc. But anyways, here's the article. So now I don't have to go back and find it anymore. So that's all I have for this little video. I will talk about in my next video about how we're going to create a citation from this article and send it over to our MyBib account.